Welcome to this episode of the Fourscore Project, a production of the New Majority Foundation. My name is Roger Clark, your host. This is part 4, the final episode of our Governor Pete Wilson series, a wide-ranging and intimate conversation with the former California governor that explores a wide range of subjects and issues that are both topical and timely to California and the nation. Pete Wilson was the 36th governor of California from 1991 to 1999, a United States Senator from California from 1983 to 1991, and the 29th Mayor of San Diego from 1971 to 1983. He's a United States Marine, serving on active duty from 1955 to 1958, and a graduate of the UC Berkeley School of Law and Yale University. Governor Wilson, through his life and lifetime of public service, has given us a powerful example of what it means to be a leader for all the American people. A true American patriot, a man who can teach and instruct us today on the principles of statesmanship that all current political and business leaders should heed. In our final episode of the series, Governor Wilson discusses public safety, drugs, gangs, education, and getting California on the right track. Is there something inherently unequal about the bargaining process when you have a public employee union negotiating with elected individuals for...
Sure, it's obvious.
Explain in detail.
Well, it's an obvious conflict of interest. And I'll tell you who thought so. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a pretty good Democrat. But he said it's a conflict. I'll tell you who else. George Meany, the founding president of the AFL-CIO. He said, hell, that's not right. And it isn't. And what you should do is to provide the opportunity for good teachers to prosper. And the same thing is true. I never went along with even arbitration for police officers, and I'm about as pro-police as anybody that you're going to find.
Right.
I had a grandfather who was a police officer who was killed in the line of duty. My mother was 18 months old. But here's the point. They deserve, if they are really good, they deserve good pay. And there is competition. I can tell you when I was mayor of San Diego that we were competing all the time with other cities, other counties, for the best of our police. And I said, you know, if we're too cheap and don't value them, we're going to lose them. That's the competition that you want. And it worked.
Well, what's the status of our Cal State and University of California systems? Are those institutions delivering solid educations or not?
Some are better than others. I think some are reasonably good. And the University of California, in the best of its graduate schools, particularly in the sciences, is world famous. But what we're talking about is the fact that secondary schools that send kids to freshmen at Berkeley frequently get sent to the community colleges to get the basics that they didn't get all the way through from third grade on up through high school.
Makes you wonder how they got admitted.
They got admitted in many cases because people were trying to give what they thought was an even break rather than a high test score for entry. And it's happening all over the country in a lot of the Ivy League schools. They are dismissing the SAT scores. They don't even give the test anymore.
I think Stanford, which of course private, they dispense with the SAT or my computer. So.
Well, Stanford is as woke as Yale or Princeton or Harvard.
Right. Well, I know the California University system has a storied past. I was up at walking through the Berkeley campus some months ago, and I wandered on to a row where they had all these parking stickers. You had to be a Nobel laureate and had a parking pass that said you were such a being in order to, and there was 15 or 20 of these parking passes, and a little chutzpah. But there's not many universities that could get away with that. But they probably fill those parking spaces. But that's always retrospective because Nobel laureates are based upon an education that happened decades ago.
It's based on accomplishment, if in fact that's legitimate. I've heard that, but I think it's a gag.
Is it a gag? So looking forward, because Nobels are retrospective, prospective, the question would be 40 years hence, will a Berkeley or a Stanford still be producing what they claim to be Nobel laureates or hiring Nobel laureates? Any thoughts on the future of education at that higher level in California?
I should tell you, I've only been intimidated by two audiences in my entire career. One was a small group of Nobel laureates at Berkeley. And the other was the Medal of Honor recipients when they had their annual meeting. I think that we make a mistake when we dispense with testing of a kind that is necessary to determine whether or not people are in fact properly trained, whether they have gotten what they deserve, which is an education that allows them to read and understand things.
Right.
Not everyone is going to be a Nobel laureate. Not everybody is going to be a judge.
Yeah.
Not everyone is going to be a specialist in medicine. God, I hope there are more and more doing basic research. But the point is, the California Teachers Association that sided with me and backed me because of my opposition to a legal right to strike for strikers in the classroom. You've seen what happens when they, in effect, they're striking. They're claiming that they're staying home to avoid becoming contaminated.
Right.
And I just don't believe in it. I don't think it's healthy. I think we're doing a disservice to a lot of these kids. And particularly while I was governor and talked with David Gardner, the president, I said, David, aren't we doing a disservice to kids who are sent from their high school to become freshmen here at Berkeley and find that they can't do the work, that they're not even sufficient readers, that they can't do basic math? And he said, yes, and we do our best to combat it. But he said, I have to agree, it's not good enough.
You mentioned the Janus decision, which was a decision of the United States Supreme Court, to paraphrase roughly, said that an individual cannot be compelled to be a member of a public employee union. They have to give notice and elect whether or not to voluntarily contribute their dues to that. It's a more involved decision than that.
Well, that's the guts of it.
So what's been the status of public employee unions in California in the wake of the Janus decision?
It's been good. I'd say that something like a quarter of those who were members have gotten out. And now they can do it without paying $125,000 to a lawyer. The thing that the California Teachers Association, as it exists now, did was to hire very clever lawyers who contacted members of the union and said, here, you need to sign this contract, this 3-year contract. And a lot of them did because, one, they didn't want to be ostracized by other people in the union, specifically the stewards. But they didn't want to fight it. So a number have, but a number haven't. The interesting thing, if you're interested in what their political activity is like, is it all only to do with teachers' pay, with their hours, with things that relate to their professional responsibilities? Most of the political action that is taken has nothing to do with that. It's on the basis of completely different political questions. And they spend a fortune on it. We'll perform a little old math. If there are 300,000 members and they are required, as they were, they're not now, but as they were, to pay on average $1,000 dues every year, then under the old math, that's 300,000 times 1,000, a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And when it's every year, it's a hell of a lot of money. And they relate to things like lowering the penalty for criminal acts, things that have nothing whatever to do with their professional responsibility.
The unions contribute to political campaigns.
Oh yes, heavily.
Do they favor one party or the other?
Yes, guess which one?
Would it be the Democrats?
It is the Democrats, and they do it, and that's a fact.
Does that have any practical effect, you think, in terms of California now being a statewide level, a one-party state?
Yes, it does. Obviously, as a Republican, I can remember the days before this occurred. It was very different. And you're mentioning the fact that we've lost population. We have.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are Republicans because they didn't like having to pay taxes that were too high, or if they were small business people, to put up with the very expensive requirements for regulatory access.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's probably worse even than the taxes. Every year, collection of political potential for very leftist unions. And the biggest one is that one.
With this hemorrhaging of people, are we talking about a hemorrhaging of people we would once upon a time classify as the American middle class? The people who have jobs and pay their taxes, go home on a night. Are they the ones that are leaving California, or is it other groups of people that are leaving?
It is largely those people who are small business owners, because it hurts them. And they figure, why do I have to go through this? And another perfectly pleasant place without being held up and supporting things that I don't agree with anyway.
Thank you for joining us for this fascinating and informative discussion with former California Governor Pete Wilson. My name is Roger Clark, your host of the Fourscore 7 Project, a production of the New Majority Foundation. Please share and like us with your friends. And I hope you've enjoyed our 4-part series on Governor Pete Wilson, his lessons on leadership and government, how to fix what's broken, and the importance of honesty in public leadership.